Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. MHS Student Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to invite the students to speak, and I know Mr. Riley is here tonight. I know, Allison, you had told me before that you wanted to just wait until the next meeting because you were doing a survey on some of your peers. So I wanted to invite first Hattie, if you'd like to speak.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hattie Parker, and I'm the 11th grade representative. And today I'm going to be talking about the Social Justice Roundtable, which is a new program for MHS, but it's picked up a lot of positive traction in the small time that it's been available. The program began when Assistant Principal Travers reached out to a group of teachers with the opportunity, and from there, Ms. Fessenden, anatomy teacher and co-director of our National Honor Society chapter, forwarded it to both her students and any NHS members interested. Any students interested and available attended a 4-week program over Zoom ran by Assistant District Attorney at the Middlesex District Attorney's Office, Mrs. Rachel Frazzardi. During the experience, which I was lucky enough to be a part of, myself and other students that attended discussed things such as social justice, advocacy, student activism, and social justice changes we students can make both inside and outside the classroom. I spoke to Ms. Fessenden about her experience attending these meetings, and she noted that she was amazed at how thoughtful and educated her students were, and she would like to see a group of students such as these organize themselves and keep the conversation going, maybe even starting a club at MHS. Junior Tara Pierre also expressed similar opinions when she stated, "I enjoyed hearing and discussing ways to combat the issues that are affecting our community, and I looked forward to seeing how avid everyone was to listen and learn from each other at each meeting." Ms. Fessenden did reach out to the DA's office to see what the options were for expanding the program so that it could reach a wider audience of students, like those such as student athlete Sarah Cronin, who expressed that the program looked interesting and promising, and she would love to be involved had it worked with her busy schedule. Those who were able to attend all the meetings discussed starting a social justice club at Marlborough High School with the help of Ms. Fessenden, and were grateful to have such an educational and informative program to immerse themselves in.
How were you able to do that without taking a breath?
I've had lots of practice. I know, I'm a fast talker.
Great job.
Did a wonderful job.
Questions from the committee? Any questions? Yes?
I don't have a question so much as a comment. I was also part of this social justice roundtable, and it was honestly a great experience. I know it was only open to NHS members, so I would love to be able to open it up to the whole student body. And I think we had a lot of great conversations, and I think that it would benefit a lot of people to be a part of it.
Great, thank you very much. Other questions? Thank you.
Next up, we can hear from Abby Hennessy on Fall 2 Sports.
Hi everyone, today I will be talking about the start of Fall 2 along with a follow-up from winter sports. Overall, there's been a lot of participation in sports, which has been good because that means people feel safe, and that's always the goal. The winter season started December 14th of 2020 and ended February 20th of 2021. Boys and girls basketball had 60 participants and competed in 12 games, each over 30 practices. Boys ice hockey had 40 participants, and varsity played 13 games and JV had 10. Gymnastics had 13 athletes and had 5 meets and over 25 practices. Girls ice hockey had one MHS player, Mallory Farrell, who played on Algonquin's team and played 10 games with 20-plus practices. The season overall was pretty successful, with only one team having to quarantine due to close contact from an opponent. The overall goal was to get kids back to playing their sport safely, and they did that. Although this season was not about the wins and losses, all the teams played well. Each team was able to have a senior day where seniors were recognized and their parents could stay to watch their game. They made the most of their situation and were actually able to live stream all the events on the MPS YouTube for family members, alumni, and the students themselves. For the 1 to 2 hours a day of practicing and games, the students got to have a little bit of a normal day pre-COVID. Fall 2 just started February 22nd and will end April 23rd. Right now there are 50 players for football, 36 players for girls volleyball, 42 total athletes between boys and girls, and some 7th and 8th graders for indoor track, 12 to 15 people for cheer, and 10 to 12 players for unified basketball. Fall 2 is just beginning, and the weather has been looking good for football and indoor track that are both being practiced outside. Games begin next week and will be live streamed just like the winter. The goal is to continue to allow kids to participate in their sport just like the winter season and make some memorable moments in this Fall 2 season, especially for the seniors. Overall, I know the administrators and coaches involved in the sport have been working really hard for this to happen and have been making sure to follow all the protocols. The coaches and athletes are all still as passionate as they were last year and even more. Some coaches are even using Zoom to have team meetings. Also, coaches are using Google Classroom to make announcements about practices or sending out workouts to do at home even before the season starts. Everyone has been doing their best adjusting to new changes. I know myself and a lot of other students and families I know are grateful for having sports this year. So thank you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee? Thank you. Good luck with the sports this spring.
And next up, we're going to hear from Jessica.
Hello, my name is Jessica Rosenzweig, and I am a sophomore at MHS. For this March's school board meeting, I chose to talk about the opinions of sophomores and juniors about the MCAS this upcoming May. About a week ago, I released a Google form to the sophomore and junior class inquiring about their thoughts and opinions about MCAS occurring this year, and I got some really good feedback. Of the 48 students who responded, 39 voted that they do not think we should have MCAS this year. Many said that they did not feel like it would be right to have MCAS since they have not had a normal school year. Since the majority of the school year has been fully remote, it can be difficult to retain the things we have learned compared to what a normal school year would be like. One sophomore stated, "I feel MCAS should not happen this year because coming from a sophomore point of view, we got half a freshman year and our whole sophomore year has been remote or hybrid. This means we are not nearly learning as much information as we would in a regular in-person school year." In addition to this, I asked students how prepared they felt to take MCAS given the circumstances of this year. The overall response I seemed to get was people did not feel prepared for it at all. One student said, "I don't feel prepared at all to take the MCAS. I find that it is not fair to ask students and level all they know when the education system for the past 1.5 years has been vastly different than normal. Yes, I believe that teachers and MHS have been doing a wonderful job accommodating to this unexpected curveball. But despite any effort by anyone, this year was not the same and shouldn't be graded as such." Another idea that was commonly conveyed was that since we have been home for so long, it has been hard to learn anything. Taking tests like MCAS is already challenging, but in addition to all the different circumstances this year has brought, it makes MCAS even more difficult. A couple of students did say while they don't feel completely prepared, they still feel comfortable enough to take the test this spring. I also asked students if they felt MCAS is something that is a big source of stress or something that they feel negatively impacts their mental health. Many students said that MCAS is something that usually stresses them out, but even more so because of this year. Students pointed out it can be stressful because it is a major test, but also a graduation requirement. However, others seem to say it was something that does not affect them deeply in terms of mental health. One student said, "MCAS is a huge source of stress for me every other year of my life. And this year, because it is so different, it is stressing me out so much more because I feel like I haven't learned anything the best that I could. I know everyone is doing everything they can given the times, but I still don't feel prepared, and it is definitely something that will negatively impact my mental health." Another student mentioned, "Of course, my mental health has decreased to an extreme level this year. I used to be a straight A student, and now my lack of motivation, depression, and anxiety of logging on all day has made me struggle to get past failing for many of my classes. Normal years, I would put most of my effort into studying and working towards the MCAS. This year, it is something I'm constantly worrying about." I would also like to acknowledge the two people who said they think MCAS should happen this year. One point that was made was that MCAS provides the opportunity for students to earn the John and Abigail Adams Award. So canceling MCAS this year would then cause many students to lose the opportunity to earn this merit-based scholarship. In addition to this, another junior made the point that it is an important test that evaluates what students have learned in the past year. They also voiced their concern that they would not want MCAS to be pushed off to their senior year. In summary, I would like to share this last quote because I think it speaks to how students feel about MCAS this year. Overall, I just don't feel prepared for the MCAS. I feel as it is necessary since colleges aren't as necessary because colleges aren't needing it as much as years before. Also, grading a student's performance based on a pandemic and a whole new learning environment is far from a perfect way to calculate a student's understanding of a subject. I know this might seem like I'm just trying to get out of a test, but I'm genuinely anxious and depressed about it. I hope that when deciding this for students, you would put yourself in the student's shoes. Would you want to take a test figuring out your performance after a year of figuring out a new learning environment, mental health issues, and a year of isolation and uncertainty? I want to conclude by thanking you all for taking the time to hear students' perspectives about MCAS this upcoming May. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Question from the committee? Any question from Ms. Hennessy?
Actually, I just wanted to thank Jessica on gathering the insight and information. I can't say that I am at all surprised by the comments because as we've talked about here, I continue to be amazed that we continue to keep pushing it off, especially with the recent information that Desi was continuing to move forward, just asking to continue to push it out further. So I am very hopeful that not only like voices like Jessica and our student body, but community members and school committees, as well as administrators, really speak up on behalf of the students and the staff this year that I really don't think this is the year that we need to push forward with adding one more layer of anxiety and stress to everyone's table. But thank you very much, Jessica.
Thank you. Any other members? I have a question, Mr. Superintendent. When I was on the call yesterday with the commissioner, I was doing something else, so I wasn't paying full attention. But I believe he said that it's not a state decision on the deferring of this, so it's a federal decision, and we keep talking about DESE, but it really has nothing to do with the state. We don't have a choice. It must be Betsy DeVoe's fault, but.
You're correct, Mr. Mayor. There is we would need a waiver from the federal government to be able to waive our accountability standards. We did receive that waiver last year, and from everything I've heard, they are not interested in providing that waiver for this year.
Right, but again, it's a federal waiver, not a state waiver.
You need both. Yeah. Once they do the federal waiver, then the state has to do their own.
Thank you very much. Next.
Next up, we have Risha.
Hi. So today I'll be following up on something that other representatives have talked about in previous meetings, and that's mental health. Specifically certain things that we now have at the school to help students in their mental health and further steps that could be taken to help students even more. One resource that we have available for students is the Social and Emotional Learning website. The website has resources available not only for students, but teachers and the rest of the community. It provides different ways to improve mental health from home, such as yoga, relaxation apps, websites with tips to gain mindfulness, and so much more. This is a great place for students and adults to find something that helps them deal with their mental health. Another thing that we have started in Student Council is mental health vlogs. So far, we have put up our first vlog of a student going through what his week looks like. This provides students with a way to see how other students are getting through school days. There are many more vlogs to come, and with these vlogs, there will be more for students to see on how other students are getting through the day and hopefully find something that helps them. While this resource created by students to help other students is great, a platform where students are able to talk to other students may prove to be very successful. In many cases, students are going through something or are stressed, and sometimes talking to an adult isn't good enough. While adults can help, peers can directly relate to and help with the problem in a way that adults may not be able to. Our experiences may not be as understood as well by adults than by people close to our age. This is why having an outlet for students to talk to other students about mental health may be beneficial. In addition to that, an idea has been brought up about having a way for underclassmen to get to know and get advice from upperclassmen. I talked to students, both underclassmen and upperclassmen, and here's what they thought. A couple seniors said that when they were in freshman and sophomore years, it was really important for them and helpful for them to get to know upperclassmen and have that connection to be able to get advice about high school. A few other upperclassmen said that they don't really know any underclassmen, and it won't only be beneficial for freshmen and some sophomores, but it also helps us become more of a community. Some freshmen said that they were really looking forward to getting to know some people from other grades and this year, but due to the circumstances, they weren't able to, so this opportunity would be nice. To sum it all up, there are many resources for mental health available for students and even adults, and there are some ideas that could be even more beneficial to help students' mental health. Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee? Thank you. Next.
I think that would be the superintendent's report, Mr. Mayor, if that's all right with you.
Thank you very much. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I just want to start with the, I believe it will be the last winter 2021 COVID data. I think the next one will be spring. The current active positive cases and quarantine students. Right now, I just wanted to update the committee. We currently have 15 positive cases across the district, 7 at MHS, 3 at Whitcomb, 2 at Jarrick, 1 at Richer, 1 at Goodnow, 0 at Kane, and 1 at the preschool. We had 1 quarantine classroom at the time of writing. We did include 2 more. We have 1 at Whitcomb and 1 at the preschool as of right now. Cases, again, have continued to fall or be steady. At the time that I reported, I had said there was 81 total in the city. I checked today, it was 78, so that has stayed pretty constant. And the active cases by age has kind of been moving right to left in the past couple weeks, with more cases in the 5 to 19 and 20 to 29 age groups. The state data continues to show drops across all 4 major categories, whether it be cases, testing average, hospitalizations, and deaths. My second item tonight is vaccine announcement. On March 3rd, the governor announced that pre-K through 12 educators and staff will be eligible to obtain the vaccine through appointments starting on March 11th. This is obviously a welcome change. I know many faculty and staff are thankful to be able to access the vaccine sooner than anticipated. It does not seem, though, that a local option to deliver the vaccine is on the table at the moment, so it is doubtful that we will be able to administer the vaccine ourselves unless we receive different guidance soon. We have not received anything like that. I believe that most of the faculty and staff are signing up through the CVS website and other factors. So it really doesn't look like we're going to be able to do a clinic ourselves for our employees at this time. Number 3, I wanted to update the committee on the quarantine procedure change. I'm sending the following message to the parents tomorrow, changing the quarantine and close contact procedures for March 15th, 2021. I have reviewed the changes with Mr. Garside from the Board of Health. Additionally, I did meet with the district's nursing team. I'm not going to read the entire statement to you, but I just wanted to touch upon the highlights of the statement so everyone was on the same page. First, for close contacts, our previous definition of close contact, what the schools were using, was any student or staff member within 6 feet of a positive individual for 15 minutes or more, as well as any students or staff in a classroom with a positive individual. Our updated definition of close contact, which will mirror the DPH guidelines as well as the Board of Health, is that any student or staff member within 6 feet of a positive individual for more than 15 minutes. So in previous times, we were using the entire classroom as a close contact. We're no longer going to be doing that. It is going to be based upon the distance and the time. The other change in the procedure will be our definition of quarantine. Previous are any student who was in close contact with a positive individual would be quarantined for 14 days, which at that time meant the entire classroom. There was no test out provision. Our updated definition of quarantine, without testing, an asymptomatic student may return after 10 days of quarantine as long as they remain asymptomatic and monitor themselves for the full 14 days. If a student or staff member is asymptomatic and tests negative on day 5, they can return on the 8th day, providing that they monitor themselves for symptoms for the full 14 days. We do maintain the minimum 7-day strict quarantine per the CDC guidance. This also is helpful because we now have testing options at the school. We're more than happy to be able to provide that testing option for anyone who would be determined to be a close contact. I would say that we now have the ability to do this very quickly and very easily, and we want to assist people as much as possible. I know that this, obviously this was difficult for a lot of families over the past couple months. We had a very strict quarantining protocol, probably the most strict in the area that I know of. However, I think at the time, with the number of cases in the city, it made sense. But at this point, with the cases falling to where they are, and trying to create a more stable education environment, this to me makes the most sense right now. This is going to mirror pretty much what every other school district is doing. We were much more conservative. Now we're coming back to where the state has been providing us the guidance this entire time. My fourth item is the final parent choice for learning model for the school year. Tomorrow we are putting out a survey to parents, this is at the elementary level, to consider their learning model for the final time this year. I want to include, I include some information here so you can read it. I'm not going to read the entire statement, but what I am going to do is just make a couple points clear. One is, if you're not requesting a change, you don't have to fill out the document. So I can't stress that enough. A lot of people filled out the document last time, but they weren't requesting a change. You do not have to do that. The second thing is there's been a lot of information put out into the media that has possibly caused some confusion with some parents. So I just want to clear that up. If you're currently in remote right now and you want to stay in remote for the remainder of this year, you can do that, okay? I know that some of the information you've seen on the websites, or maybe Boston Globe, who's been carrying the story, has said that remote no longer counts towards the learning time. That is not actually what the regulations say. So if you want to stay in remote, you can continue to stay in remote for the remainder of this year. What we are asking, and we want people to take seriously, we're giving people 2 weeks to look at this, is if you want to make a change for the remainder of this year for your learning model for school. We're going to have a remote option, and we're going to have an in-person option. It is obvious from the regulations and everything that the commissioner has been saying, obviously our in-person for K through 5 at some point is going to be a full return. We're probably using the date of April 5th. We still have some work to do with that to message that to the community, but that is going to be our in-person model. So what we're asking families to do is give us their final choice for the year. And so that way we can look at our class sizes and we can try to determine if we have to make any changes whatsoever. But I just wanted to clear up that confusion about that remote issue. So again, we appreciate everyone if they can get back to us as soon as possible. We're going to send that survey out tomorrow. We're going to leave it open until March 24th, at which time we will close it, and at which time we cannot take any additional movement, because we really have to focus on making sure that class sizes are reasonable and that we can do what we need to do for the rest of this year with the information we have. So it will be, unfortunately, we will not take requests after the 24th to change the learning model. My fifth item is the appointment of the Whitcomb principal. I wanted to reserve some time, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, to report who I would be appointing. And Ms. Angela House, please come up. Now she has to stand there while I talk about her. So very pleased to announce that I am appointing Angela to be the principal of the First Lieutenant Charles Whitcomb School. Angela graduated from MHS and was inspired by educators who are passionate about teaching. Excuse me. Angela graduated from UMass Dartmouth with a BFA in art education and an art history minor. In August 2012, Angela began her career in Marlborough as an art educator at the First Lieutenant Charles Whitcomb School. In 2014, while working as an art educator at Whitcomb, she was nominated and named Massachusetts Art Education New Art Educator of the Year. During her time in the classroom, Angela began her educational leadership journey through her work as the co-chair of the PBIS committee at Whitcomb, which is the Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. Angela also helped Whitcomb implement PBIS and continues to be passionate about a multi-tiered system of supports, providing positive supports for students and social-emotional learning opportunities. Angela quickly realized her passion for helping lead positive change and embarked on her master's degree program in educational leadership and management at Fitchburg State University. Angela graduated from Fitchburg State University with a master's in educational leadership in December of 2015 and began as an interim assistant principal at Whitcomb in December of 2016. Angela's interim role led to an assistant principal position the following year. During her 5 years as an assistant principal at the Whitcomb School, Angela has continued to focus on PBIS and helped build and implement school-wide expectations around academic behaviors. Angela is entering her 9th year as a Marlborough Public Schools employee next school year as the principal of the Charles Whitcomb School. I just want to join, obviously, the faculty. I told them today at, was it 2:30? I don't remember exactly when, but they were thrilled. And I just would like to have the school committee congratulate Angela on her appointment and give you an opportunity if there's anything that you'd like to either say to Ms. House or ask any questions. So thank you again.
Yeah, you knew I'd say something. I'm thrilled, I have to say. When the superintendent did let us know, I was thrilled, number one, because you're a success story of MHS, which is, you know, or the whole public school, you know, and I think that's great. But I will also say on a personal level, I've had the opportunity of having you teach at least one, if not two of my students, I was going to say, and as well be a coach. And I think that really speaks to some of the things that I think are great that you can bring to this position, is really an understanding of the whole child. And that's what we've always been about. And I think especially at the Whitcomb School, middle school age, is such a tough time. It's got a lot of things going on. And I think you've got a lot in your arsenal to bring forth on trying to head up a tough school. You know, it's a challenge, but you're stepping up for it, and I'm really thrilled for you. And congratulations. I'm excited to see what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate the confidence. I just want to say I'm honored and excited for the opportunity. I've had the opportunity here to have such great mentors that have helped me figure out my path, and so I'm excited to grow and continue the success MPS has had. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Anyone else? Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm sure you put a bright new face on that building, so thank you.
Thank you. My sixth item, tonight Mr. Diaz will deliver the FY22 budget for your consideration. I'm not going to replicate the entire budget message tonight, but I will tell you this moment in time requires bold leadership from all levels. School department has consistently met our responsibility to be a partner and not an adversary in budget development for years. We've developed a proposal in FY22 that makes great strides towards our stated objectives, continuing our investment in early ed, stabilizing class sizes K through 8, and continuing to support alternative programming for high school students. This will require tough decisions to implement. I look forward to speaking at our budget workshop later this month and continuing this conversation. I've been invited to speak at some PTO meetings over the next few weeks about the next year's budget, and I'm going to bring Mr. Diaz with me to those meetings. Thank you, Mr. Diaz, for your efforts on getting the budget here on time on the 9th. So thank you very much. My seventh item for a full return to school. I look forward to continuing the conversations with the Educators Association about a full return to school and developing plans that work for Marlborough. The Board of Education was scheduled to meet last Friday to discuss the Commissioner's request for authority to change whether hybrid learning will count towards time on learning for the rest of this year. As you know, they did grant the Commissioner authority, and he is using April 5th as the date for a full return at the elementary level. My eighth item is the middle school activities. I want to thank Jeff Roszinski. He's finding a way for many eighth grade students to participate in the indoor-outdoor Fall 2 track team this year. The Mid-Watch group, which is our athletic league, is also approving middle school sports. So I look forward to bringing that back to you and updating the committee on the upcoming schedule and sports that will be available to our middle school students. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Question from the committee. Ms. Bodenhedger.
Not really a question, more of a, we're going to spend some time talking about the back to school at some point. I mean, my personal feeling is we have a plan that we've been working on, and I think we should stay our own course regardless of what the commissioner says. I don't see any reason why we should disrupt the plans that we've been making. We've been following the rules all along. I mean, I really think that this is a power grab to try to force the districts in the Commonwealth that have not gone back to school at all. And there are some, and some have legitimate reasons, some we might question the legitimacy of their reasons, but we haven't done that. We've had as many kids as we safely could have in the buildings when it was safe to do so. And now that we are working towards a plan, hand in hand with our union reps, to come up with what works for our community, I think rushing it is not the way to go. So that's my 2 cents.
Any other questions? Ms. Hennessy.
So before I ask some of my other questions, I'm going to say 110%. I am directly with Ms. Bodenhedger. Prior to the commissioner even getting the go forth on Friday, I had already been feeling like we have a good plan in place. It has been working. Our numbers are going down. The quarantines are also going down. So I feel like we've been moving in a good direction. Our focus has been to make sure that we are educating students and keeping everyone, staff and students, as safe as possible all along the way. And until I really start hearing something that we've been doing wrong, I think we should stay the course. So anyway, as far as the learning model, thank you for clearing that up. Because I was quite concerned. Obviously, we'd started getting some communications from concerned parents relative to needing to potentially change their learning model if they were going to be staying at home and trying to do everything remotely. So I'm pleased to actually hear that affirmed, that they can continue in that mode for the remainder of the year, as I think that is important only from a standpoint of everyone has to find that comfort level, and everyone has had to juggle all along the way. And if somebody's found a way of making sure that their student is learning as best as possible at home, I don't want to rock the boat right now. There are a lot of other factors too. I think it was Risha's point around the mental health issues. There's a lot, and right now is not when we need to start changing things. And relative to the close contact, I'm glad to see that we're looking at some changes. That said, I do need to ask a question about communication, because obviously we have to be very careful with how things are communicated out to the parents, the families. But my question is that if in fact there was a positive case within a classroom, will it be communicated at least to the members in that classroom or those families so that they can personally make a call about their comfort level, about understanding whether they feel that they should get tested, because I think that to me is one of the things that is hard with this, is an understanding that you may be in a different place and you may be in a different place than I am, and we all have to kind of allow for that difference. And so I think the communication is really important, so the students and or staff have the opportunity to really make that personal decision, or as a family, how they want to handle it. Is that able to be done?
We could provide communication. We can't identify the person, obviously.
Right,
But we
of course.
could, we have been doing exactly what you're saying. And what happens is when we do have a close contact previously, before we send out any communication to the wider school, we literally call every family and get someone on the phone to let them know that that has happened. So moving forward, I don't see any issue with continuing to make sure that the folks who are in the classroom have an understanding that they were not in close contact, but someone in the class was tested positive for coronavirus.
Thank you. I think that's imperative only because it gives them an opportunity to take an active role should they choose that they want to, right? I feel like if they don't get that communication, then we start hearing rumor mill potentially start spreading, as opposed to us having a direct role of communicating the information.
Yeah, and I would add that we have testing available at the schools.
Exactly.
I implore everyone to continue to sign up for it.
And actually, I would love to take the opportunity to say thank you so much for being an advocate for Marlborough to have the free testing facilities here, not only within the school system, but also here at the New England Sports Center and AFC and the Best Western. I personally have to say it has been very advantageous to be able to continue to do activities such as sports that may take you to New Hampshire or Maine, whatever, with your children, but to come back and test and feel very safe then in knowing that we're following guidelines. And I appreciate all you've done to be an advocate for keeping things here available to Marlborough and to our community. I know that I've heard from many other folks across the state that do not have this available or as easily available, and I just want to commend you for everything you've done to make this available for us, so thank you.
Thank you. It's been great working with the hospital, and we've just been told we're extended through June 30th, so that will help out down there. Now, if I can get some vaccines here, I'll be hitting a home run, but we haven't got that yet. We got the double done, so thank you. Anyone else?
I actually have,
Just go ahead, Joe.
I have a couple of questions that I was going to wait until later, but since we're talking about it, I guess maybe I can put it out there. I was contacted by a family who had some actually specific questions that I do not expect to get answers for tonight, but if this kind of information could be made available to families, I think there are some families that are struggling about whether or not they might want to go remote, and having some more information about what it will actually look like in the buildings, I think would be helpful. So just a couple of questions I'll throw out is, what will the class sizes for 3rd through 5th look like once everybody's back in the buildings? And will the 1st and 2nd grade classes stay with the same teacher? And will they be kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, I guess? And will they also maintain the smaller classes? I mean, the issue is when everybody's back in the buildings, obviously there's a chunk of people that are coming back because they are remote, but just questions about what the class sizes are going to look like. And then they were asking about how many students, and obviously each school is going to be different because they're different size classrooms, but how many students can fit in the classrooms at 3 feet versus 6 feet? That was a question. I mean, I think we have a pretty good sense of what they can do at 6 feet because that's the standard that we've been using. I guess if we're forced to put more kids in the building than can accommodate that 6 feet, where that less than 6 feet going to show up. And then the other question was about buses, but they already said that no more rolls on buses, right?
The commissioner did give us, I believe, about a month ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, Doug. I don't remember exactly the
Yeah.
date, but they did basically roll back the restrictions on busing completely for elementary. And then at the middle school, they said 2 per seat. We've always used 2 per seat at the middle school and high school anyway, because you can't fit any more kids on a seat that are that big.
They're just too
big. So really, there are no more restrictions on the busing in terms of that. However, you do have to make sure that you're doing the non-pharmaceutical interventions, as they call them, so the windows have to be down, masks have to be on, and all of that has to be followed for you to be able to use that.
Right. Yep. Thank you for that
And
clarity.
I'm happy, if it pleases the committee, I'm happy to do a presentation at the next meeting to look at the full back-to-school K through 5 plan.
Check that off my questions.
All right.
That would be great, and I think that would be helpful to families, because people are making decisions, and they have only 2 weeks to do it. So there was something that you had just mentioned that brought a question to my mind, but I've forgotten it, so I will reserve it for later, and hopefully it'll pop back into my head again.
Close contact? No? Communication? No.
Oh, I know what it was. Thank you. So now, if a whole classroom is quarantined, but a bunch of the kids are not sick, or have they been remote?
I don't know what you mean by right now. Do you mean under the current rules or under the proposed
Sorry.
rules?
Under the current rules,
Yep.
when we have quarantined a classroom, have they been at home remotely tuning into school?
Yes.
Yes. So with the commissioner's edicts and hybrid no longer being allowed, when they're on their 10-day quarantine, does that mean that they won't be able to be in a remote learning environment?
No, because actually the guidelines state you can do that.
Yeah,
You can pivot.
Okay,
Yeah, the guidelines said you could
I
pivot.
skimmed the document. I didn't have time today to read the whole thing, so I'll get back into the weeds with it, so.
And they just released another one at 4 o'clock. So
great.
we're gonna
Okay.
do this all over again.
Even more, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so we will still have that option for kids in quarantine to remote in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
Ms. Matthews.
Thank you. I too agree with Ms. Bodenhenger's recommendation that we stay our course. I also think vaccination is a important conversation with the unions, as well as the comfort level. Obviously, we're only limited to how many vaccines the state's providing and the availability of appointments. And we know we've been hearing that there have been people who have been successful getting vaccinated. But I think it's a hand in hand. We've been very conservative, I think rightfully so, based on the trend of the city overall. But and I also think that, as you said, another report came out. When you are planning for your presentation at the next meeting, since the later guidance today talked about the middle school and a date, if you could include that as well, because if you're having those conversations yet, I know that's another month after the proposed return, but I think there's going to be a lot of those questions asked, unless we're going to do a survey for the upper levels after this. I would assume the survey is just for elementary?
K through 5.
Okay, so then there will be a survey for middle?
We have to survey everyone at all levels. So that's
time.
what the commissioner said. So I would prefer for the next meeting to focus on K through 5, and that we still have enough time to be able to.
So I think we have to make sure that people understand that if they don't receive a survey tomorrow because their child is in 6th grade, it's because their child's in 6th grade. They're going to have the opportunity.
We're focusing on K through
Right,
5 for our
right.
first survey.
Okay, all right, because I think a few people are going to start to go, oh, what do you mean I have to make a decision now and change my model? So, okay, perfect, thank you. Then,
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Sure.
At the last meeting that we had, I just, you have to own your own words. I had written that I think we should really consider bringing kids back full-time.
Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of frustration with the edicts that are coming down from the state, but I still fully support the idea of bringing back our elementary students full-time. And I know we got additional news today about middle school, and we're going to work through that. But I do have to say, I really do support bringing back elementary full-time. I think there might be some things we have to work out, but I look forward to working with the teachers and the administrators and bringing a plan forward that really answers a lot of those questions. But we have, like you said, we have a process.
Yeah.
And the first part of that process is we're going to meet Thursday with the Education Association. We're going to talk about some of the concerns, and we're going to bring forward what I believe to be a very good proposal for parents in Marlborough who want to have their kids full-time in school.
Great.
I'll just clarify my words, and I agree with you 100%, and that is the direction that we have been talking about going in. My pushback against the commissioner is that I feel like we need to do it in the time frame that makes sense for us. And if we're not ready to do that at April 5th, I think we do it in the time frame that makes sense for us under, the plans that we have already begun to put in place. I was not suggesting that I was disagreeing with the concept of going back full-time. I just feel like we need to, be true to the process that we have been going through. And so, thank you for that clarity.
Go ahead.
Just because we need to be transparent and clear. I think we've been working really collaboratively all along the process, and I'm looking back at you, Eileen. I think we've all been trying to do what we can to work in the best interest of the health, safety, and education of our students the whole way along. And I have to say, I have been exceptionally proud to be able to say I am anywhere associated with this district because of how smartly I feel everyone has tried their best to work together. And that's all we can. There's no set playbook on this. So, I support you, Superintendent, working with the administrators and the staff to find the safest way possible to get our elementary school, kids back in as best as possible in a safe way. And if we can continue to move forward in a safe way, great. But somebody else coming in and just waving a wand does not work for me. So, thank you.
Okay, I have a question. So, last meeting, the meeting before that, over the last couple of meetings, I heard the goal was to get the elementary school in full-time on April 5th.
No, it wasn't April 5th.
The original date I used was April 12th, but actually, in the discussions I've had with the principals and the administrators, they actually told me April 5th might be better because it's actually the first day of that trimester.
Okay.
That came previous to the news from the state.
That's what I'm saying. It seems like the big pushback now is because the state gave us a date instead of the date we were planning on using, which is the same date.
I didn't know April 5th was on the table. That was news to me.
Okay, next.
We didn't have a meeting in between those two times. Sorry, I just want to put that on the record. We haven't had an opportunity to discuss that.
Keep going with your plan, whatever it is.
Yeah, I didn't know about April 5th planning.
Yeah.
Ms. Murphy, you have anything to add tonight? You have more. This horse isn't dead yet. Go ahead.
It's close, though. It's getting late.
No, it's...
First of all, just a couple little questions that came up. Wouldn't de facto, if you do the new quarantine thing, if some kid's not in class, wouldn't that kind of tell everybody else who the kid was that's not in class, but he's the one who has the COVID?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So there kind of is that there. I was also going to ask about, we could tell us next meeting what was going to be going on specifically, but you already covered that. One thing I'm obviously interested in is what happens to music and art classes now that they're all back in the room. Obviously, they can't be doing them.
No, there's new guidance
Zoom
on
in the
it.
afternoon.
Did you get the new guidance? There's new guidance on music that came out.
No, I didn't see the new guidance on music.
Okay.
I know you're not supposed to sing still, but other than that. Let me see what else. Also, is MASC, M-A-S-C, it should be. I'm the one that acronyms. Have they put any guidance for it? No, they haven't had much time. But if they said anything about what happens if, and I don't think it's going to happen with us, so please don't get me wrong. But if something comes up and there's something happens where a bargaining thing comes up against this edict from the commissioner, what happens then?
This is Marlborough, we're not gonna deal with that. We've had great communication, our educators have been fantastic to work with. I was just talking before I came to the meeting with the Mayor of Woburn, and we were talking about, you know, some of the issues with teachers actually out there picketing. Revere's having a tough time right now. And I was telling him that we've had nothing but the opposite from our educators. And he chimed in and said he has the same thing up in Woburn. So it was great. I want to continue working with them, and I'm sure they're gonna do whatever they can to get in the classroom. So that's not a scenario I'm ready to discuss right now.
I appreciate that. And I spoke at the beginning and saying I didn't expect it either, but I also reserve my right to ask a question about something, just to get that clear.
Well, we have no idea. The commissioner said get back to class on the 5th.
Okay. A little bit on, I was, had nothing to do on Monday, so I actually watched the commissioner's speech and everything happened at the meeting. And then I picked this up today off the MASC site, actually. It's his guidance that's sent out, and I don't think the commissioner's ever heard of PBIS because this is particularly coercive, I think, more than collaborative, some of the stuff he does here. He's quick to point out that this is a legal requirement and that money, Chapter 70 money is tied into this, so that didn't sound particularly collaborative to me. I think there's a lot of disingenuity, I looked that word up, I shouldn't have said, in the whole thing here, obviously. The emergency nature of the amendment, unless he's been living under a rock in Mar-a-Lago, I don't know why he doesn't know what was going on here. We had not plenty of time, we had time to do this in a more collaborative way, I think, which would have been to see where the districts are. You should meet people where they are when you're trying to work with them, see where everybody is, you know, then have the opportunity for the districts to look and see if we were going to do this, what would we be able to do this? Look at, you know, have the surveys done ahead of time so we know how many kids we were working with in terms of being at home, even though we all went back. The facilities, the transportation, the staffing, all those things we had an opportunity to look at, and not trying to do it now within the next, 2 weeks. So that was something I thought was a little bit of a disingenuous way to look at it. The whole thing about the emergency nature as well is they're giving us now we have 3 months for public input. That will put us in June. So that means that public input they didn't really want because there's not going to be any public input there. So that kind of annoyed me a little bit. One comment that was made by I'm not sure her role is, but she was explaining the amendment process. To a member, by the way, who was wondering why we're always getting things in this body that we vote on the day we get them, which I thought was interesting, is that we wanted to allow for planning time and for, and for continuity. And I said the same thing, you guys have been working on plans. It's not like we haven't been doing this stuff. And he kept bringing up the 10 days that you had ahead of the school year, which is important. But I don't think you've been looking at that plan as we look forward. That's not what you're working off of, is it, Superintendent?
We've been working on this since last March.
Right, but it's not coming directly from the plan for putting things back in.
So when we had an opportunity last spring and summer, our responsibility was to bring the school committee 3 full plans, a full return plan, a hybrid plan, and a remote plan. We ended up, for the most part, using hybrid and remote for a majority of the school year. We have on the shelf, ready to go, some full return plan, but we have learned so much in the past couple months that is what we're taking in now, recognizing what we've learned and altering the plans moving forward so we can be successful.
Like I said, the only thing is I knew that you had it there, but he seemed to indicate that we just dust it off and fix a couple things, it'll be fine. We all know the circumstances change, and circumstances don't care about deadlines half the time. He also, I love the student member on the board. I don't know who he is, but I love them. First question he asked was, did you have an opportunity to speak with administrators? How do you put administrators, superintendents? I don't know why he doesn't know one's the same as the other, but basically, did you talk to anybody like teachers unions, mask and other things like that. And he kind of said, I certainly talked to the educational community, is the way he put it. And then, so I was, before I spoke, I actually called the MASC and MTA, since I have a foot in both camps. And what they explained to me, it was more like a drive-by poo-pooing of what they wanted to say. They didn't have any interest in that. And he made it clear pretty much, if you read the, if you watch the thing on the meeting, and what you read in here, he made it pretty clear that he's more concerned about the medical community and their opinions, which is, they should follow that. I'm not saying that's not a good thing, but he doesn't seem to really have any more use for the opinions of people like elected bodies like us, and the people like MASC and MASS and MTA and the American Teachers Federation. So that kind of bothered me a bit. He seemed to be just kind of giving us the shortest shrift here. I want to listen to the medical community too, but I like to listen to the medical community that, as well as the people like John Garside and the people in Marlborough. I want to hear more from the Bergerons and the Garsides and people like that than I want to worry about. I mean, he basically was hitting us overhead at this meeting with all these doctors coming in, and we should follow that. I understand all that. No, I don't think anybody disagrees. We want the kids back, and we want them back safe, and we all understand the consequences. We all understand the mental health, the social, emotional issues. And so to keep hitting us over the head with that just seemed like it's not that we don't understand that. Nobody's against this. It's just we're looking at the way they did this. I think they paid lip service to us as school committees. In this new document, if you read it, he said it would be nice if school committees voted on a waiver if we wanted to have a waiver, but it's not necessary. And the waiver itself, if you look at the waiver page, if you read this thing, he's got very unfriendly language and just bold-faced, underlined, and very authoritative language. It's pretty much saying, you can have a waiver. Just give me it's pretty much saying you're not going to get a waiver unless you're really, really, I don't know, I'm not sure what it is. It just seemed to kind of almost saying you can have one, but you're not going to get one. And it seems he's going to also be the sole arbiter of who gets a waiver. So I'm not sure how that works into anything else. And this is his policy. And the last thing was, he mentioned ESSER funds and the student opportunity funds and all this other stuff, but he also mentioned about 900 ways to spend the same money. Getting more buses, bus monitors, tents for classrooms outside, off-site facilities, new staffing, getting different furniture so we could do this sort of thing. And also, I gather, I don't know how we're doing for funding, but evidently after April 18th, they're no longer paying for whatever they're paying for testing, pool testing. So they're stopping that funding, I gather.
We're not using that program. We actually work through Project Beacon on our own PCR testing.
But my point again is matter of fact, at one point he said, that was lots of money I was talking about earlier. I'm thinking, well, we haven't been sitting on the money, and I asked this earlier. Yeah, we have some money left, but it's because it's specified for very good places to go when the time comes and we need it. It's not just sitting there waiting, like we're holding this money for a particular, I don't know, what end of the COVID party or anything. It's already earmarked. So there was just a lot of things I thought were just pretty disingenuous about the way it happened. And I have no problem. I think we should put the kids back in, believe me. I just don't think we should just totally ignore what's been going on in the community we live in or any other community. And that's what bothered me most about this was, again, it was just that heavy-handed hammer way of doing things when it could possibly be done so much easier and better if we had just been a little more collaborative. So that's where I'm coming from.
Anyone else for members forum?
I'll just add that I just forwarded to everyone the information about arts and music, and sports is in there too.
Thank you.
Now can we have Mrs. Murphy?
Mrs. Murphy?
I guess so. Go right ahead.
Sorry, Mary.
No problem. I'll be really quick. And I wanted to give you an update on the extended day interventions and tutoring. In December, Assistant Superintendent Jody O'Brien, Director of EL Lynn Medalliou, and I requested proposals from the building leadership teams for after-school interventions and tutoring programs. Over the last 6 weeks, after-school support has been provided to individuals and small groups of students in grades K through 12. In my written report, I also included a sample proposal. New supports will be scheduled as schools identify additional interventions and students at each level. Additionally, we have scheduled extended year programs to take place July 6th through 5th, and we've already announced that to staff, and we've started posting positions for that, so I just want the public to know that as well. And camp intervention will be scheduled from July 19th to the 30th. Still don't know if that's going to be the same model, the at-home model, or in person, but we have flexibility to do it either way. Leadership training. So on March 9th, tonight, March 16th, the 23rd, and April 5th, all Marlborough school administrators participate in a 10-hour training led by Dr. Khalees Warnham entitled Becoming a Culturally Proficient Leader. This training will prepare school and district administrators to support the work that will need to be done at the classroom, building, and district level over the next few years as we review curriculum and school policies for bias. Dr. Warnham will return in the fall to work with members of the district's Anti-Bias, Anti-Racism Committee and to frame the work for all the faculty during an initial professional development day in the fall.
Questions from the committee? Ms. Matthews.
Ms. Murphy, on the summer programs,
yep.
Do we, I guess the question is, like, do we have the capacity to make it as large as possible with as many people that may be interested?
We're hoping to offer also a variety of programs, so not only in person, but remote. I know that Ms. House and I have been talking about a transition program for incoming sixth graders. So a small academy for that. So yes, we're going to be flexible. We have last year's and this year's a lot of summer school money. So we're hoping that.
Well, and one of the positive things that I did see in conversation and advice from the state was the discussion of enhanced summer programs, so that since we can be outside and we can do more things and being able to especially target, I hate using that word, but envelop the kids that may need the additional support.
But also, for the most part, we are trying to maintain, we're hoping to be able to have 2 weeks before the program and then at least the 3 weeks afterwards, because faculty and students also need to have some vacation time.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
And so,
of course.
So we're hoping for the 5 weeks.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Just very quickly, Dr. Warnham is also available to perform a 2-hour session for the school committee. We can schedule that. I'll leave that to the school committee to determine whether that's something you want to participate in. If so, Ms. Murphy can help schedule a session with Dr. Warnham for the school committee.
So I will admit I kind of, when I saw this in the...
Special workshop.
Yes, please.
Yes,
please.
okay.
Yes, please. Yes, please, right?
Oh, absolutely. She's fantastic.
That's very exciting.
Yes.
MASC has been able to have
Utilizing her a
her
lot, so yes,
do
please.
some trainings for us, so she's great, yes,
Thank you.
100%.
Can't wait. Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is
I'll bring you a
tonight's
cookie.
Deliver it to me.
update from Finance and Operations. Backed by popular demand is a food services update. Tonight, we're happy to celebrate another milestone in food services. We're officially over 350,000 remote meals since March 2020. Actually, on March 18th, it will be 1 year since the buses first rode, serving meals throughout the city, and we've been providing that service every week since. So I would like to recognize the work of the cafeteria employees as well as the bus drivers who have made this possible for us. Marlborough's efforts were recently highlighted by DESI and Project Bread in the 2021 Summer Eats Conference, where we served on a panel and discussed the city's remote meals initiative. Just another reminder, as I always like to do, that meals are included in Marlborough's academic program, and they will continue to be. We encourage everyone to participate in our food services program, especially supporting the food service employees in the schools. And we have 80 delivery locations throughout the city right now, where you can have access to lunch and breakfast at no cost. Also wanted to say, especially as we look at returning students K through 5, we do currently have offerings for a number of opportunities for community members to join the food service team. We are one of the best paid food service staff in the state, and we encourage you to visit our website and apply to the open positions that we have on the team. Solar panel installation. The Facilities Department's General Foreman, Dan Jackson, has been coordinating the installation of solar panels on school buildings. Panel installation is already complete at Kane and Jarrick. We're actually looking to have the Jarrick panels go live very soon. Marlborough High is ongoing and will be complete by the end of March. Goodnow will also eventually have solar panels on its roof, and that work will be scheduled at a future date. Budget schedule look ahead. So tonight, the school committee received the FY22 school superintendent's budget request. I just wanted to go over some of the dates that are coming forth. On March 24th, we will have our workshop at 6 p.m. to review the superintendent's budget request. On April 13th, we're looking for the school committee to agree on the FY22 budget figure for us to schedule the public hearing. And on the 27th, we will have the public hearing, and the committee will then vote on the budget in regular session. And then on May 1st, the city council and the mayor will receive the formal school committee budget. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Diaz?
If I may.
Yep. Go right ahead.
Just real quick, when you get through with all the surveys and stuff in getting ready to get everybody back to school, there'll be, I assume, some busing changes you may have to make. You'll have those ready for us at the next meeting, or as close as you can to it, I assume.
We'll have a plan. So the food plan won't be known until we know all of the actual requirements. But yes, we'll have some updates on busing.
Okay, great.
For the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Minutes of February 23rd, 2021.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Gary? Mrs. Hennessy?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Caruso?
Yes.
Mrs. Bodenhenger?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, they are approved. Public participation.
For the public participation portion of this meeting, members of the public may provide comment by emailing the superintendent at superintendent@mps-edu.org before 4 p.m. on the above date, or by dialing 774-243-0611, conference ID 597-592-118, #. Mr. Diaz, is there anybody waiting in the conference for public comment?
There are currently no callers, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. There was a comment that was submitted previously to the meeting. However, I did speak to the person, and the person withdrew the comment after I gave them an answer to their question. So I have no public comment that were emailed to me, Mr. Mayor.
No one else in public participation? You have no one there?
No callers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Marlborough High graduation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe last year we took a step out. There's Mr. Riley, yes.
In his space shuttle.
He has a new background every meeting. That's why we love Mr. Riley. So last year for graduation, I do believe that we took a step out and tried something that maybe a lot of people were not doing at the time. And I think we had a very successful graduation. I received many compliments by parents who were very happy to be able to see their students walk across the stage. We were blessed with wonderful weather until 2 minutes before the last ceremony.
And we saw it
and it worked out really well. So I've asked Mr. Riley to be here tonight just to give an overview of some of the pre-planning we're doing for the graduation ceremony, understanding that we put a plan together last year. We felt very confident in that plan, and now what we're trying to do is, frankly, perfect it and get it ready for another very good graduation ceremony for the students this year. So, Mr. Riley, please take it away.
Thank you, Superintendent Bergeron. Thank you all for having me this evening. I just want to quickly commend you all on what I would cite as an excellent example of leadership this past year. Many of us are aware that Friday marks the one-year anniversary of when we had to close our doors on March 12 of 2020. And I just want to say that even though it's nothing to celebrate, we've made it this far in really good form and great form as a school district and as a community, and I attribute a lot of that to your leadership. So thank you as a leader in this district. Thank you for your commitment and your continued leadership. I have no doubt that we'll continue to figure this out in good form. So thank you all. All right, so with that, we're going to talk a little bit about graduation. We are not going to move graduation to the International Space Station where I am right now, but there are fewer restrictions up here. So go ahead, Mr. Diaz, you can go to the next slide. This is just a real positive opportunity for us to provide our graduates of the class of 2021 with some hope and some reassurance that we haven't forgotten about them, and we've been talking through what is the best plan. We want to put a stake in the ground and make a commitment and start working on the logistics for a graduation ceremony that would be similar to what we did last year. There are some small modifications I want to talk about, but we are looking at utilizing the Noble Field again. It was a wonderful venue last year. We received a lot of positive feedback from students and families on the experience that we put together, as Superintendent Bergeron had said. Go ahead, Mr. Diaz. Thank you. So we are looking at the weekend of June 5 and 6. Now, I put June 5 and 6 on this slide just as a precaution, depending on whatever safety regulations we're trying to battle through, although I want to say this, it is our intention, if we are able to do so, to consolidate the number of ceremonies that we do this year. So that is one of our goals. We will take advantage of whatever we can do to do that so that we have fewer ceremonies, but we are planning, if we need to, on having the weekend available for this plan. And again, some of this slide talks about really depending on how many students can participate in each ceremony, that will dictate our overall time frame. We are going to ask students to once again let us know that their intentions are to graduate in person. We had about 90% of our students that chose last year to participate in the in-person ceremony. We feel like that will be similar to this year, if not higher. We will once again make alternative arrangements for any family that opts out of the ceremony and would like to do something private. We made some arrangements for families that reached out to us and requested that last year as well. We will double check our contacts with families, so we won't rely just strictly on communication with a survey or mass communication. As we did last year, we made personal phone calls to families when we didn't hear back to ensure that we had their plans for their seniors buttoned down. We will do that again this year. Go ahead, Mr. Diaz. So this talks a little bit about the guidelines. Number of students per family, per ceremony was dependent last year on the state's guidelines. Once again, we are hoping that this will become a bit more relaxed and we'll be able to host larger ceremonies, fewer ceremonies over that weekend of June 5 and 6. We will utilize a similar plan with volunteers spread throughout the ceremony in order to assist students and families from the time that they park to how they enter Noble Field, where they're organized to sit at Noble Field. We will all watch very proudly as our students once again cross the stage, but a very similar format to what we used last year. Go ahead, Mr. Diaz. And we will once again be contracting out for photography services. We received a lot of positive feedback from students and families on the opportunity to have those professional pictures taken and provided to them at no cost after the ceremony. So we are looking at a similar plan for that as well. that concludes my graduation overview. It's not very detailed. As you know, in the background, we do have a lot of these details figured out as a replication of what we did last year. And our only real major adjustment is to hope that we can host fewer ceremonies with larger crowds. So with that, thank you all very much. Any questions from the committee?
Questions from the committee? Any questions from the committee? Ms. Hennessy?
Thank you. I appreciate you going ahead and presenting this. I know that a lot of families have been wondering, and I think it helps the seniors to actually have something to aim for and shoot for, knowing what's hopefully being planned. I'm very appreciative of hearing that you're looking at potentially having larger groupings of students, especially due to the change in the EEA guidelines relative to, I know we were discussing it for sports, that the capacity issues have definitely changed and are larger amounts, not massive, but I mean per our stadium being outside, it seems like we might have the option of allowing for more people to be there. So thank you for putting that line in the sand to at least allow students and families to know that you're planning and they have something now to look forward to. And I appreciate the communication, and I'm sure that they're going to appreciate hearing as you continue on in this process. I would be remiss if I didn't say this, and not that I'm thinking you're going to give an answer right now, but similarly, as you can only imagine, I'm sure seniors are looking for other milestones, if you will, that normally happen within, their senior or junior year. And I know that many families have been asking if there's any thought around prom. Not saying answer right now, that's not putting you on the spot, but I think that any of these milestones that can be in your wheelhouse for thought, which I'm sure it probably is, but I will say it out loud, I think would be helpful. And I'm sure Allison Lucas might have something in that her mind's going. But I just think the more that they have from you, from a guidance standpoint, communicated, the more helpful it will be for them as opposed to making assumptions. So thank you so much for all you're doing on trying to make this happen.
Thank you, Ms. Hennessy.
Other questions from the committee? Who?
I was going to say, I'm sure Mr. Riley can update us on future plans for seniors at another date.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Go back to school.
Thank you, everyone.
School
Thank you
calendar.
for inviting me tonight.
Bye, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to bring forth the draft FY22 draft calendar. We did, obviously, I gave a copy to Eileen to share with the union, and I just wanted to bring it to the school committee as a draft for you to sit with. And I can take any comments if you want over the next couple weeks, and I will bring a final to be voted on at the next meeting, unless there's you want to vote it tonight, but that's up to you.
What's the pleasure? Ms. Ryan.
I just have a question. Why is February 26th highlighted in the middle?
February 26th is highlighted.
22nd.
22nd is highlighted, and the reason I highlighted that is to let you know that we would have a regularly scheduled school committee meeting during February vacation. So that is something that we certainly can change. Right. If you know, we wanted to potentially move back some dates or even forego the meeting, just saying. But
well,
it's your
so
choice.
We vote on that now?
Well, no, because I was going to make a suggestion. You brought it up, because December we only have one meeting, right? Generally, that in January we follow the regular rules of the 2nd and the 4th. So if we did the 1st and the 15th, if you wanted to have 2 meetings in the month of February.
I'm not available those 2. I have other commitments on the other Tuesdays.
And the that would put week to week, back to back on the January 25th and the February 1st, just so you know.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll work on this for the next meeting and vote on it at the next meeting.
Happy to take any
Input,
suggestions.
just give it to the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Policies.
Aren't y'all excited? So, as we spoke about at the last meeting, we have two policies that I'd like to make a motion for removal. Policy number 7.400, community and business volunteers, and policy 8.140, after school discipline. So I'd like to make a motion for removal.
Motion made and seconded to remove policy 7.4 and 8.14. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Gary? Ms. Hennessy?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Caruso?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mrs. Bodenhinger?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, they are removed.
Thank you very much. So next up would be voting on approval of policies as have been amended. So first up would be policy 6.900, holidays. I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Ms. Matthews?
Isn't it 7.100?
Well, yes, okay, yes. It was, in our current policy online, it's 6.900. We would be looking to actually maneuver it into 7.100 into a different chapter to align it with a more appropriate grouping, shall I say. So, yes. Call it what you will.
If there is no objection, can we continue going down and take one vote? If no one has any objection?
I would love that if that's good with everyone.
Keep going.
Okay, so policy 7.450, home and school relationship. Policy 8.060, entrance age and placement. Policy 8.090, redistricting. Policy 8.110, student advisory. And policy 8.400, military connected. So I'd like to make a motion for approval of those 6 policies.
Motion to approve 6.9 holidays, 7.45 home and school relationship, 8.060 entrance age and placement, 8.090 redistricting, 8.110 student advisory, 8.400 military connected. Is there any discussion on any of the policies? Seeing none, Mr. Gary? Ms. Hennessy?
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Caruso?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mrs. Bodenhinger?
Yes.
The chair votes yes, they are approved. Reports of subcommittees. Any reports? Ms. Matthews?
I just want to be known that the negotiations subcommittee will begin bargaining with the paraeducators and the administrators in the next several weeks for renewals on their contracts.
Anything else? Ms. Hennessy?
Thank you. Policy met last week. We have a few more that we'll be bringing forward, and then we are continuing to finish up, getting through the first solid round in a while. We're doing really good, so.
Thank you very much. Any other committees? Seeing none, members forum. Ms. Matthews, how's that?
I have read the warrant. I reviewed the warrant and I have signed it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hennessy?
Thank you very much. So I wanted to mention to you all, I did send an email out to let you all know that the MIA was actually hosting a wellness summit, which was taking place today, tomorrow, and Thursday. They have a number of different classes going on, and I actually sat through one earlier today, and I'm scheduled for a few more workshops along the way. And I think some of it has been really helpful. Today's was with a young woman who has started a group called Athlete Minds Matter, and it's about mental and social emotional support around athletes and trying to kind of keep them going. She was really, really strong, wonderful presenter, and I think it would be great to have her as a personal resource, especially with all that's going on. She's really adapted to assist athletes that were having limitations during the pandemic. But also Jeff Parati, who has been a huge advocate for transgender, lesbian, and gay students. And he actually had received an award today by the MIA for all of his work, which I have to say I think is really outstanding, because he's really helped to support a lot of students really going through anxiety and stress, and helping them find a way. I've heard him speak a number of times. He's presented at the MASC state conference a number of times, and I have to say every single workshop I've ever attended, I've learned a huge amount. So I will send out information to you all, because I think it'd be helpful to understand some of the information going on. And one that's coming up that I am going to be sitting on is how to support those at risk for suicide. And I say that because I really think that there have been anxieties, depression, and unfortunately suicides that have really come out with all that's been going on and the stress that's been caused. And I'm hopeful that this information would be something that we could then push out to our counselors and to our students to try and help, because that's what we need to be doing at this point in time. And I know we have been doing a lot, but I'd love to keep on doing it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members? Any other members? I just wanted to comment on, I got to read to the preschool the other day. It was the first time I've been able to get in the classroom in a year, and it was great. You know, it was just nice to be back in the classroom. So looking forward to later this year, and hopefully back to almost normal next year. So, anyone else? Seeing none.
Move to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Mr. Gary. Who'll figure that out yet? Ms. Hennessy.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mr. Caruso.
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews.
Yes.
Mrs. Bodenhenge.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.